Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 22nd edition of the SIG Network meeting. As a usual reminder, this meeting is governed by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, boiling down to effectively, please be nice to one another. So please do be nice to one another, and please use the raise hand option in Zoom when you can, when you need to say something, so that we can organize making sure we prioritize people's comments and so forth. We have a fairly light agenda today, which I will share. Hopefully I will share. That should be visible. Yeah, super light agenda for today. So we will go over triage, and then I have an item, and then if you have any other items, it's an open agenda. If we have time, fill it up. I think we're only a little bit late today, so we should have plenty of time if you have some topics you want to bring up. All right. Getting myself reorganized on a new machine, so just bear with me. Gonna open up the triage issues. Okay, let's start, I suppose, with the ones that don't have assignees, and then we can work our ways through any other, potentially, we start with the older ones that do have assignees. So in reverse order here. All right, so we have this one, network readiness for index job, headless service depends on presence of pod. Just want to see if anybody has been talking to them.
Yeah, this was centered around GKE. So one of the folks from the GKE networking team is spending time on it to reproduce it, trying to figure out what exactly is going on down there. Okay. I don't think I'm suspicious that it's GKE specific, but it does show up on GKE, so they're looking into it.
Gotcha. Okay. Should we assign this one to that person for
now? Yeah, sure. Why don't you assign this to Dimitri?
Okay.
I don't think he's a org member, so I don't know if we can. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, try it anyways.
Let me hover over him. It looks like he's a member of Kubernetes.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, sorry.
That's not how you spell his name. Did I spell that right? I don't think I've ever seen this spelling before. That's interesting. All right, there we go. Okay. Next one, IPVS flaky test on GCE. It's Damon, and he is he checking it out? Okay, so Kalori was taking a look, but says since then decided not to. So this one really does need to be further triaged. Okay, so load balancers should be able to preserve UDP traffic when server pod cycles for a load balancer service in the same node. This test is flaking. Does anyone here have some time to at least triage this forward? It looks like you pretty much from here just have to go take a look and see if you can identify why the test is flaking.
It's an implementation problem. The test is passing in the other.
Okay, what should we do about this?
Is there an IPVS person here who can maybe look at it? Anybody?
Yeah, I'm here, but I don't know how to troubleshoot in GCE.
Okay.
But I can
sometimes the troubleshooting is adding extra instrumentation, printfs and whatever, and then rerunning the test. Just opening up a PR to rerun the tests and seeing if you can get enough signal to show what's going on.
So Lars, the problem is you don't know how to get the logs from the job.
You have instructed me before. I can take a look at it, and I can ask Antonio if I get problems.
Right, I can guide you. I don't have time to go deep, but I can guide you if you reach out and show you, what thing says. You send the PR, you add modify the PR, the key proxy, and it dumps the log.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you, Lars. Really appreciate that. You
It's
gotta
weird.
remind me.
It's
UAB.
UAB.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
that's
seen it
it.
a lot and I just always forget it. Okay. Thank you for taking a look at that one for us. Next, we have GCE master scale correctness flaky test.
Yeah, that I got that assigned. No, I not assigned.
You want it?
Yeah, I know the problem.
Okay.
It takes more than 45 minutes to provision the IP.
Gotcha. All right. Antonio will take a look at that one. And then our last unassigned one is TCP contract entries remain in stale after rebooting worker node. Worker
And
node.
that one
reboot.
has made a very good question if it matters,
Yeah,
or if it just lists the stuff and see a stale entry and report it.
so they say that there is a stale entry. So I don't know if this is a super picky person that say, "Oh, I don't want stale entries," or "Oh, this stale entry needs black holing traffic." I don't know, but you can assign to me. He's going to reply.
Okay.
To me
Thank
and
you.
to Lars. The Lars is the. Don't. Do you mind, Lars, that I volunteer?
Yeah,
you
I
here?
can take that too if you don't.
Okay, we
have the time.
can pair here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that takes care of making sure everything is assigned. So we do have some older ones we can go over real quick and just kind of see where they're at. This one's ancient. And then if anybody wants to, I'll kind of pull a couple of these open. If anybody wants to highlight any specific ones, please just say so. So this one is after GCE upgrade, nodes talk to master using the in-cluster IP. And last we did, let's see. We asked for Ben and then it sat around for a few months.
Yeah, I don't feel that this is going anywhere.
Should we try to politely close this one?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Tim, what do you think? You've kind of taken a look at it at least.
I'm trying to refresh myself on it. Sorry, which number
This
is this
one's
one?
This is 56787. Make upgrade testing consistent with the header GCE. And it says after an upgrade, nodes talk to the master using the in-cluster IP.
This is old. Sorry, I was looking at older and untriaged. That's I was scanning for it and like not finding it. Sorry. Hit me with that number one more time.
56787. I can even just link it to you if let me know.
Got it. Wow. And this is a 6-year-old issue. Give me a second.
Yeah, it's trying to see what the more recent things. 2020 was 3 comments back, so this has been hanging out for a minute.
It's not even clear to me what the problem statement is anymore.
Yeah, tempted to say, I mean, I'm just trying to pose the question, is this one of those situations where we should close it? Ask them
Yes.
to, yeah,
But it's also not SIG network, so
Yeah, I think this is we have no idea if this is still a real issue. So if it is, somebody should open it with new information.
okay. Do you think that we should say that
I-
and remove
I'll
our
close it.
assignment from it? Okay, you'll close it. All right, sounds
Yeah,
good.
thanks. I'll do that right now.
Thank you. we have this one from 2021, pod config readiness probe. If kubelet restart, pod temporarily report container not ready. Tim, you've taken a look at this one from 2021. It's a little less ancient. I can remember 2021.
One
Let's see
second.
where we, yeah, no worries. Let's see where we ended up here 3 weeks ago. There is some recent conversation.
I think that this is the ongoing discussion that they want the probes to keep working despite kubelet restart. Because right now, when kubelet restarts, it starts from scratch, right? It sets everything to not ready. I don't know if I've seen this discussion in a couple in some other place.
Which one is this one? The readiness probe? Yes, there's some argument about what the behavior of probes should be when kubelet goes unready, when the node goes unready, and the node SIG in general says, well, we'll just throw the pod as unready, and I think that's hostile.
Okay,
So,
so this one,
Sergey, this is mostly SIG nodes. Sergey was going to look at this, if I recall.
well, it's fairly healthy in that it actually has some updates recently, and some links from other issues. So
Yeah.
maybe this is one we can just, it's a continuing conversation. We need to let that conversation continue a little bit further. Nothing to do about it here.
The problem here is it's just not high enough of a pain point that it has risen to anybody's top priority.
Roger that. Are we okay with just kind of, since it has some recent updates, just kind of letting it go and come back to it if it starts to get
Yes,
really stale?
I'm still cautiously optimistic that Sergey has or is working on a plan for probes overall.
Okay, he mentioned it in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This may be improved as a part of this. That was 3 weeks ago, but this is okay. So he's just basically saying there may be some improvements through the issue that we have open. So yeah, okay. Should we ping Sergey and just be like, hey, did you have any specific thoughts about how we can move this one forward?
Yeah, that's fair.
We'll see if that just kind of brings him back into the fold a little bit, and if he's got some ideas. All right, the next one. This one's from this year. Okay, we're up to 2023. Is it still necessary to maintain the limitation on exposing? Oh, I remember this one. We talked about this one fairly recently. Yeah, I think this one we ended up in a situation where last time we discussed it, we assigned it to you, Tim. And I think that what we wanted to do was kind of, I'm trying to remember because I know I was a part of this conversation. Didn't we kind of want to just like not change anything unless somebody had a really good reason? Is that where we ended up?
I mean, I would like to rip this out, but I have to go do some homework on doing it, and it's just on my overly long list of things to look at when I get a few free minutes.
Okay. Is there anything that we can be helpful? Is there any way we can be helpful in this group, or should we kind of just allow you to get back to it when you get back to it?
I mean, I don't even really remember. I remember some of why we did it. I don't remember the full scope of it. If I recall, it was about, at least on GCE, the load balancers and firewalls were set up in a way that made this a little bit scary. And I know that's evolved a lot in the last 9 years, or whenever we filed this. So I need to go back and see, like, do other cloud providers still have the same issue, or are we all fixed now? Because I don't want to rip this off and expose customers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My customers or other people's.
Roger that. Okay. So is there anything we can do to be helpful, or should we kind of like let this one bubble back up?
Let's let it sit for a bit, and if I can't get to it in a few more cycles, then I'll maybe solicit more help. I don't think this is urgent.
Roger that. Node selector as selector needs to be fixed. Antonio, you put this one in March.
Yeah, this is Sarvesh, right? You not Sarvesh in the call?
Sarvesh.
Yeah, he is not in the
I
org.
don't see him in the call.
No, I talked with him just 1 hour ago. But this is part of the node IPAN change, and when he introduced the controller, only some person like Jordan goes to a node PR that got merged and realized that the semantics of the node selector is different than the label selector, and he made me open this. So we need to fix it because it's wrong. But
Okay.
Sarvesh told me that he's going to
Here's
work
the
on that.
relevant. Roger that. Here's the relevant comments.
Yeah, I was surprised. I don't know how he could get that because the code was merged 1 year ago or something like that. And he found the bug. So, yeah.
Okay.
So right now it's not a problem because I moved the code out of the library, so it's in a different place. It's not longer in the helper. But as I told you, Sarvesh told me that he was going to work on that. He cannot get assigned because he's not part of the org.
Roger that. Oh, he's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this?
I don't hear you. Same?
Talking?
No, I didn't.
Sorry,
Same?
it's the aux. It's the aux port on this thing. It has to be just right anymore. Can you
You
hear me?
use
Okay.
Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Okay. So from what I'm understanding, this is just some work that needs to be done. It's kind of known and documented what needs to be done. You were considering Sarvesh to
No,
potentially do it.
he told me that he's going to work on that. But the
Okay.
problem is, it's part of one cap that got delayed. So, but it's under control. It's not a risk, and we can take time to fix it.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it to you to kind of keep up with Sarvesh then, unless anybody else has anything to say. We can move on to the next one. Okay, these were just the comments that are relevant to that one. This one, I think we remember this one, is fairly recent. Rob, endpoint slice objects become stuck in a state where IP condition differs.
Yeah, this was a good reminder. I did just comment on it. I don't know what we can do with it. It sounds like they're using something custom that is writing to endpoints, and they also are unable to reproduce the issue. So I asked some follow-up questions, but I'm not sure we'll be able to do much.
Okay. Well, thank you for putting an update on there. This is maybe we'll have to move towards closed if we can't reproduce it. But it doesn't sound like it sounds like that one's in hand. 10 minutes ago, so you saw that I'd open this one and you're like, oh.
Yep.
All right. Traffic is getting sent to unready pod in Kubernetes. This one taken a look at it in the past. We have an added readiness probe, and the container is an unready state until it is fully loaded. But in case of horizontal autoscaling, new pod, which is an unready state, starts getting traffic where requests fail. We are using Nginx ingress controller for load balancing. Service type is cluster. So the assertion here is the traffic should not be getting sent to these unready pods. What's up, Antonio?
No, I thought that you were breaking up and you were taking out.
I was just reading what was in the description. So if you all read it, it's just that traffic is they're thinking the traffic is being sent to unready pods and should not be.
There is no answer, right? Let's close it.
Okay. What should we say?
No, they didn't answer.
Okay, let's do it that way then. Okay. I close that one and basically say if they want to continue, please update.
Yeah.
Infinite loop in node IPAM range allocator.
Oh, okay, go.
What's up?
This is okay. This is a problem we have with the IPAM controllers, and
Okay.
I don't. So
Very verbose.
did I reply there or not?
You
Okay,
took it in April.
yeah, but I refactored one of them. I think that we have 3 or 4 IPAM controllers. So
Okay.
I don't know if this is the one that I refactor or not. Just let me. Can you do a ping to me there? So
Sure.
I
And
get
should I mark this one? Go ahead and mark this one triage accepted.
And yes, and this way I get in my inbox and I don't forget. Because this is another interesting problem. Now, Teams is working on removing the cloud providers from the core, right? And some of these IPAM controllers are only cloud providers. What should we do? Remove the code from Queue Controller Manager?
Good question.
The fact that they're only used by one cloud provider that we know of doesn't necessarily make them cloud provider specific, right?
No, there is one that only uses the GC instance.
Okay, well, that one should probably go.
Yeah, no. The others, we use that in kind. I mean, the node IPAM that tags the
Right.
nodes, but there is one that just checks the metadata.
Yeah, that seems like a good candidate to kick out, although, you know, we got to make sure somebody is ready to catch it. And we give people enough, you know, warning and time to do it. So, like, is it really worth the effort?
Yeah, I'm handling that with the cloud provider GCP. So that's why I'm saying.
Yeah. I think in theory, it's correct. I'll leave it to you to decide whether it's worth the effort.
Okay.
All right. Sounds like we have some follow-up for that. I pinged you on it, Antonio. Thank you.
So Shane, we're a little past the half hour. Do you want to? You are the only other agenda topic today. Do you want to shift to your
Yeah,
thing
I could just shift to that.
Okay.
It's fairly brief. I mean, it's more or less going to ask people to look something over. So what did you want to do after that? You wanted to continue looking at some of the stuff that's still in triage?
Yeah, we can do some triage, but then people who want to drop off can.
Sounds good. So, Zappa, Tim, and I have been charged with thinking up what project leadership looks like for SIG Network. All the SIGs are basically being charged with like coming up with kind of a official structure for sub-project leadership. So in the previous weeks and months, we've been talking a little bit about this, and I drafted this document a few weeks ago, shared it with Tim, shared it with Zappa, and shared it with the leads, Kubernetes leads and stuff like that. And now I figured it was probably ready to share with SIG Network. This is effectively, an early draft to get some feedback of kind of what we, based on some notes that we took when we were meeting as our trio of leads here, on what this might look like going forward, like the actual language, responsibilities, qualifications, and stuff for a sub-project lead and what it means to be a sub-project lead. I don't necessarily need to hash it all out or like walk through it on this meeting or anything like that. But if everybody who's interested could take a look at the doc, please feel free to add comments and suggestions, questions. Any feedback is very helpful as we move forward. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I almost added this on the doc itself. I took a quick skim of this earlier, and one of my questions, you know, I think Gateway is one of the sub projects that would be included in scope for this. And my reading of this is that it's actually different than what we've been doing so far. So I wanted to understand if that's intentional or accidental. But as of today, okay. As of today, what's been happening in Gateway API is the leadership has largely been managed by the existing leaders of that subproject. This seems to suggest that any changes should go through SIG Network chairs. Is that?
I don't know if that was my intention necessarily.
Okay.
No, I like GEPs, and actually I've been helping the influence of NPEPs in network policy, which is basically just a carbon copy of GEP with a funnier name. And so I like the autonomy. So if I have language in here that makes it sound like everything has to go through the SIG, that was not.
No, to clarify, what I meant was I was interpreting the last section of selection process as meaning that the leads meant sub-project leads, and they would be selected by SIG Network chairs, which I think makes sense, but I'm just wondering, like, for the day-to-day maintenance, if a lead changes, like we've had happen recently in Gateway API and Gamma specifically, how far that should bubble up, I guess. And we can take this offline. It doesn't need to be,
No, I appreciate the feedback. I have a preference for leads at least being involved in that process. I'm sorry, chairs at least being aware of that process, like ahead of time. But I'm open to us not doing that based on everybody else's feedback. Like Tim, what do you think? And Antonio, go ahead, you raised your hand.
Yeah, before going into the details, what is the motivation? I mean, is this because we have a problem that we want to solve, or we think that we may have a problem, or
part of the motivation is based on the responsibilities. So, and I would like to have Tim kind of jump in too, so I'm not the only one speaking on this, but because I'm sure we don't all 100% agree yet, and that's part of what this document is, to kind of get us to a place where it's something we all can kind of like. But there's some problems that I've seen, which are part of the reason why I decided I wanted to be a chair, including in like KPMG, which has had some turmoil, where we don't want to have too much structure. We want to have autonomy, but there's not enough structure in some cases. There's not a good feedback loop. Basically, SIGs can get into a position. Gateway API is probably a bad example of a SIG that has had problems, because Gateway API has just been gotten so many people on it, and it has been moving so quickly. But with some of the other groups, it's been difficult to kind of get the support that they need, like KPMG and network policy, to kind of know what to do next in the case of KPMG, and move forward. So having some structure in place that kind of says what these sub-projects actually are, how they should be run, and making a mutual kind of like, there has to be some effort from chairs and leads at the higher level. There has to be some effort from the project. The person who's organizing the project has to have some responsibilities, should make it harder to kind of get into a bad spot, is part of the motivation here, is to avoid burnout. Burnout is probably the biggest reason why this document even exists, other than the reason that, like, in general, the Kubernetes organization wants to start structuring things this way. So there's a little bit of like that, but the main motivation is to help avoid burnout in the future and keep people engaged. Go ahead. Sorry.
That I agree. That's a strong motivation. We had two good examples of that we could prevent, burnout. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, burnout, yes, having a succession plan is really important for the overall project writ large. Most SIGs, many SIGs, I don't know if it's most, but many SIGs have multiple tech leads, which means that, if one of them goes away or just flames out, that they have a succession plan. Not every SIG is as broad as SIG Network is. So when we look at, nominating people to become TLs of the entire SIG, the question is, does that make sense, or does it make sense more to have multiple areas, each with obvious tech leads? Part of it is, recognizing the work that people are already doing, which I think is actually really important. Part of it is making sure that there are people who can own and approve specific code, right, without running through me necessarily, right? For example, like if people touch all the service API stuff, right? Antonio, you've sent PRs here and you got to get me to approve it because there's nobody else. That doesn't make sense. And also part of it, I was discussing this just yesterday, it's not alone with SIG Network, but KEPs, right? There are KEPs that are like subsystem specific that still need someone like me to approve, even though the actual owners of the area are fine with it, right? So practically speaking, it doesn't make sense for, I'll pick on Dan because he's my obvious example. It doesn't make sense for somebody to send a kube proxy related KEP and then Dan says okay, and then I come along and rubber stamp it, right? Because, well, if Dan said it's okay, it's Dan's problem. So that doesn't make sense. So my goal here is to get myself out of the loop where I'm not actually adding value.
Okay, so there are two things here. It's not a sub project as we know today. The goal is to start to compartmentalize more the SIG and to implement this kind of subsystem model. Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, and in addition to that, seeing the burnout of the last couple of years and wanting to help reduce that by providing more support and a little bit more structure. I also personally kind of have been coming from the perspective that I would like to see more project management in projects, sub-projects. And so there's a little bit of language in here for that too. So the visibility of projects is really hard right now. I feel like the sub-projects and stuff like that. And having leads know that part of their role, other than just coding, reviewing, kind of making sure that things are moving forward, is also to kind of, it's kind of laid out in here, but like it really is to groom, prioritize, and delegate. And that one's a really important thing. Like, how many places can you go in SIG Network today as a new person and actually see a good first issue, and then it actually be a good first issue? Like, the grooming necessary to make that happen is, I would say, fairly weak today, and having a little bit more structure and like making that more official in terms of capacity is something I think that could be helpful for onboarding more people, getting more people that are interested involved, and doing it in a way that is healthy, like doing it in a way that ramps them up rather than just coming in at some really hard point and then getting stuck and then things fizzling out. So that's part of the motivation as well. I didn't even notice Ricardo was on here. Hey, Ricardo. So no more hands are up. So I'll give it a couple seconds. I'll take a drink. If there's any more comments to make here, please do make them. Otherwise, we can move on.
I threw an item on the agenda. Give me a second because I'm loading a page. I threw an item on the agenda to show people this new KEP dashboard that I started working on since we have a little bit of time on the agenda. Are we ready to switch to that?
Yeah, just if everybody who's even remotely interested in understanding, like maybe having some say in this, like what this ends up looking like, please make comments on. Like it's just the few of us that has access to this. Make any comments. Don't worry about being rude or anything. Just whatever you're thinking, or anything that bothers you, or anything that you want to see included, please add it there. That would be very helpful. And
yeah,
then,
really,
go ahead
truly.
And take it away, Tim. Go ahead.
Truly, I mean, the proposal that Shane has put together, thank you for that, is really about making the SIG healthier and making things move faster and easier, and making sure the people who are actually doing the work are getting recognized for doing the work. I know that for some of us, this is our job, and that matters. The recognition matters. And so I want to make sure that we're not shortchanging anybody for the great work that they're doing. I will share real quickly my, share a screen, a tab. Where is it? Oof. how do I search for that? Let me just break it out to a new window instead. That's easier. Share a whole window.
I made a note to myself to kind of make sure I go back through that doc and make sure we're emphasizing the recognition part, because that is a hugely important thing.
Table, there we go. Y'all see that? Yes? Cool.
Yep.
For some reason, I put this under Kubernetes projects instead of Kubernetes enhancements. So maybe I'll move it to Kubernetes enhancements in the end. But every cycle, every KEP cycle, we go through that KEP cards board and we move things between columns, and I'm always getting lost as to what's been done, what's coming up, because that's based on the old GitHub projects structure and it has very limited metadata. And so, things like whether the code was actually checked in for this is carried only in comments on the issues, and the milestone is really the only thing we have. So I was sitting there through this KEP cycle thinking, what would I want a dashboard to look like so that we could stare at it with this as a group and say, okay, what's moving forward, what didn't move forward, how do we change it? So I came up with this. I imported all of the KEPs that are labeled SIG Network. I think all of them. If I missed any, please tell me. Assignees is auto-populated. Status is something that I created for us so we can keep track of where things are currently. So what I wanted to represent here was, when did the status get changed? So that's the since column. And what are we doing next? And when are we going to have to touch it next? And this is helpful for me. Like, I can look at the proxy terminating endpoints very clearly, and I can say the next step is the cleanup step, and that's going to happen in 130. Cool. Now for 29, we just don't need to touch it. Right now, that information is very clear to me. I'm gonna sort of let this sit, and as we come into the next KEP cycle, I'm gonna try to use this more. But I wanted to share it with people and see if anybody had like other things that they'd like to solve by keeping track of KEPs, or just to put it out there for people to look at. It's in the project. It's in GitHub Kubernetes. You can search for it. It says SIG Network KEPs, but it's marked as work in progress. Whenever you get a moment, take a look at it. You can help populate it. There's a gate column here that we can go paste in all the feature gates so that we don't have to go searching through KEPs for them. Unfortunately, it is yet another source of information. There's KEP YAML, there's the KEP text itself, there's the issue that goes with the KEP, and now there's this. I don't know how to link all these things together. I have this tickle in the back of my brain that if we set this up properly, maybe parts of kep.yaml can go away and something like this could become a source of truth. But I'm not sure yet. So I apologize for adding one more source of truth. I am reminded of the XKCD and making yet another standard. But I wanted to see if anybody else finds this useful. If not, I will continue to use it just for myself. That's all.
Go to
Cool.
the. I cannot find it. Go to the board. What happens if you go to the board?
You can't find it?
Yeah, I cannot.
I just linked it in the important links in the SIG Network sync doc. So if you need it, I just linked it up there. It says Tim's WIP project.
So you can still see it in the
but this
project board view.
And what is the discussion? You can do things with this thing. You can see. In the other is a name.
Yeah,
and
for
you have
me,
the board view too.
Yes, this is. I mean, tabular is clearer for me, but it works in both views. And for me, the extra metadata, the extra columns, is really what it was about. And what's cool is if you go to one of the KEP issues, can you still see? Did it switch my tab?
Where are you?
Am I still sharing? Yeah, I'm sharing the whole window, right?
Yeah. What should we see now?
Okay, you should see the endpoint slice reconciler issue.
No.
When you go to the right-hand side under projects, you can actually expand it, and you can expand it, and you can see all the metadata fields that I added. So we can actually manage them from here, right? I can now add extra information per issue and manage them right here in this screen.
You are not doing any bash script to handle this, right?
Sorry, no, there's no batch script here.
Okay.
This is all straight. I can't say to how GitHub has implemented it. It could very well be in a bash script, but that's not my problem.
No.
So anyway, this is what I've been spending a little time playing with through the last KEP cycle. I found it useful. I have my own version of this of like KEPs that I'm personally tracking, not all SIG Network, but more. I found it super useful, and I hope that it's useful for the SIG. And I'm open to all sorts of feedback on how to make it more useful.
But how the entries get here?
I put them all there myself. I went one by one to all of the KEPs that are tagged SIG Network, and I added them to this project.
Because we cannot do that. Every new issue or everything with label SIG Network comes here.
I couldn't find a way to do that, but maybe there is.
I know that SIG release moved to this to implement automation. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I have not fully explored it. There's a lot of stuff in the new projects mechanism. So, maybe there's a way to automatically add them. In the old projects, there was a way to do that. So I haven't figured that out.
You have some workflow. Yeah. I know that SIG release did something with this to automate all the, they have this spreadsheet and they move it to this to avoid some of these manual steps. I'm going to ask. Oh, cool.
So there's that, and I hope it's useful for people. And if it's only me, that's fine too.
Ricardo. Ricardo wants to open a new working group for doing plugins for KEPs.
But we do have this project stuff automated with GitHub Actions. James did that. I don't know. It's using his token. So if someone steals, it's going to just mess everything, but it's working.
You were serious about that. This is already implemented.
Yeah. So take a look. If people have other ideas, like I'm happy to see them. Projects is a relatively new system, so you can always go to your own GitHub account and just create some projects and tinker around and see what other cool things you can make it do, and then we can talk about it.
Cool. I put a link in the agenda notes. Well, we have 5 minutes, and we did get up to the last couple of weeks of things. Most triage things were covered. Do we want to adjourn?
I think so.
Roger that.
Anybody else? Anybody feels a burning need to do one more issue?
Yeah, or just one last thing you want to say while we have the chance. Otherwise, we can adjourn. We can close early.
Do we have any new attendees today?
I recognize everyone in the list.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a small attendance today anyway. Cool. Well, the call for proposals is closed for KubeCon. I hope lots of people got really great proposals in, and we'll have some pity for the poor program committee who now has to read these thousands of proposals. And in a month or two, we'll figure out who all is going to be there doing what talks. I did just get a flood of CNCF emails in my mailbox about maintainer track and other stuff. So we'll have to talk about that at our next session.
Yep. Sounds like a plan. Cheers, everyone.